This meeting of the Centennial School Board is called to order at 6:30 p.m. on Tuesday, June 7th, Wednesday, June 7th, 2023. Welcome to the last scheduled meeting of the 22-23 school year. These meetings are crucial to the success of the school district, and it takes many hands to help them run smoothly. I'd like to take a minute to just acknowledge some integral folks that have been here to help us along the way. First, I'd love to give a shout out to our IT department, especially Noah and Brian before him. We literally would not be able to do this without you, so thank you very much. Second, to Executive Assistant and Board Liaison, Missy, who has been such a wonderful addition to the team this year, and I really enjoy working with you. To our student rep, Edwin, thank you for coming and making sure that we're kept up to date. And then our OSEA rep and CEA rep, Chris Dowell and Amanda Kassab. Appreciate the thought that you put into the reports that you present and just showing up and continuing to keep us informed. To the cabinet, each one of you has shined in your areas of expertise this year. I cannot thank you enough for all of your work and the way that you not only do that and do your job, right? But then you come back and you prepare these reports and present them to us in a way that makes it easy for us and the community at large to understand. So thank you very much. James, we all wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you too. Your leadership really helps set, I think, the course for what we've been able to accomplish this year. And you're integral in every single one of these meetings, so thank you. Almost done. I've only got two more. To the board members, you guys come, and this is your volunteer time. In case anybody doesn't know, we don't get paid for this. And I just really appreciate the dedication that each of you bring, the way that you show up and the way that you honestly think about things beforehand, come prepared. I just appreciate your thoughtfulness, and I'd love to give a special shout out to Roger for his time in his appointed position. It has been wonderful to have you here. I think that you've brought some really great stuff, and I just want to thank you for stepping in when we really needed somebody. And my last one, make sure I'm not missing anybody in this room, right? Okay. For the community who shows up and holds us accountable to our mission. I think that those of you that are potentially streaming this right now, if you're coming back at a later date to rewatch and see all the outtakes and the fun things, yeah, I just really appreciate those of you who continue to show up in the community, be it families, youth, staff, and just community members at large. So it has been a fantastic year. I've really enjoyed this year, and I look forward to building upon that for next year. So I just wanted to open with a thank you. And then let's go ahead and approve the agenda. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Hearing none.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Excellent. We've got some guests. At this point, we'd love to take a moment. Did you have something? Or I've got something too for this next one. You? I'm going to get up for a second here. I just want to really appreciate you, Edwin, what you've given to us. We have loved having you here. We wish you the best in your future. And I'm serious, when you're ready to do PNCA, I'm going to give you my card at the end of this night because I want to help you. Like, we can do the application. I can get the due date on the application there. So if you're still interested in PNCA, I would really love to from everybody here because we all appreciate
I wanted to just offer also to Edwin, congratulations on your upcoming graduation. It was good to see you last night at the award ceremony. And I would just say, in the various events that I go to, you're ever present. And so just appreciate all of your involvement and engagement. And I think that will help you in the future have some memories to look back on being fully engaged in your student experience. So kudos to you on your next steps, and really appreciate your involvement with this. I know it's an extra thing to do. And it's meaningful for us to have your student perspective, so thank you. Yeah.
Next up, Missy, do we have, I'm not sure, do we have slides for the new members? Okay.
We don't have the actual new members tonight, unfortunately, but we do have slides, so I guess that's the next best thing.
Yep, and I'd like to introduce our new Centennial School Board school representatives, student representatives. First, I'd like to introduce Lashmi Kishan, who will be next year's Centennial School District School Board student representative. Unfortunately, she could not be here tonight because she's actually taking driver safety right now, and that is actually more important, so she can drive herself to these school board meetings. But she wanted you all to know that she is super excited to be our student representative next year. She attended Meadows Elementary, Centennial Middle School, and will be a junior at the high school. She was also selected by her classmates to be our Centennial High School ASB Vice President next year. She is a true servant leader and always works hard to support others. She has been very active and a very positive voice for change, participating in the Principal Advisory Committee, which actually advises me how to improve the school. Outside of school, she does cultural dance with her family and did an outstanding performance in this year's talent show. We recorded it, so if you ever want to get a good picture or watch the video, please do. She's been an active member of our basketball team and is involved in several clubs. Her goal as the school board student representative is to make positive change in our district. Her goal for the future is to start her own business so she can make lots of money and so she can then give it to the community. She also wants to buy her parents something nice. We are very excited to have Lashmi representing Student Voice on this board next year, and she shows every day what it means to be an Eagle. So let's give her a round of applause. Not to be outdone, I would like to introduce Marisol Geronimo Martinez, who is our alternative school board student representative. Unfortunately, she could also not be here to attend tonight because she had a family emergency, but also wanted you to know that she's excited to be the alternative student rep. She attended Pleasant Valley Elementary, Centennial Middle School, and she will be a senior and our ASB president next year. She has a long list of different activities that she does within our school. She's on the dance team, leadership, tennis team, Key Club, Human Trafficking Club, and also is an active member of our CHS book club. Outside of school, she's active in a church, volunteering, and making a difference in our community. As she stated herself, because I asked her this question, her goal as being the alternative student representative is that she wants to make a difference. Her goal in future in her life is she wants to be a teacher and continue to learn and make a difference in her community by helping others learn. Therefore, Marisol is excited to be attending the school board meeting because also in her own words, she doesn't actually know what the school board does. So she's excited, and don't be surprised to see both Marisol and Lashmi attending the school board meetings together to share their student voice and also learn more about the operation of our district. Because through her actions, Marisol shows what it means, just like Lashmi, what it means to be Eagle, and will be awesome representatives next year on this board. So let's give her a round of applause.
Thank you. How exciting to have two, and I'm really excited to welcome them. Next up, we have Spring Athlete Recognition.
All right, give me a moment and I'll get us queued up on the video. All right, let's see if this works.
was a really great presentation. And thank you to all the spring athletes and their families. I know that people put a lot of work in. Athletes, it's definitely a challenge to be an athlete and a student and maintain it all. And those are some shining examples. It's really cool to get to see kids that I've known since like kindergarten and first grade in their high school years up there. And there were some very amazing photographs. I think that our very own Edwin probably took a few of those. So nice job. Thank you, everyone. Next up, we'll move on to approval of minutes. Is there any changes needed to the minutes? Hearing none. Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the minutes from May 24th, 2023.
Second?
All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Fantastic. Coming up next, item number 4, public forum. I did not see anything come through for public forum. Is that correct? Okay. And now we move on to reports. First up, we have our student representative report. Edwin.
All right, hello everyone. My report today is going to be fairly short because there's not much to report on as we finish off the school year. But going forward, if you want to move a slide, it's been a pretty busy early June. On the 3rd, we had our prom at the Medley Ballroom, and it was a lot of fun. I think it was a very enjoyable experience for all of the seniors enjoying their last prom together. And I think it's going to be I think it was a very fun time for all the juniors there as well. I think Student Council organized the event very well, and we applaud them for that. Last night, June 6th, we had our senior award night where several seniors were awarded cords and sashes and a numerous amount of scholarships. June 8th, tomorrow will be a CMS campus visit to Centennial. Student Council will be organizing tours and information for these upcoming 8th graders who will be freshmen next year. Tomorrow will also be the CHS Drama Awards, where students who participated in drama will be receiving their awards, as well as the Associate Student Body Banquet. So Student Council will be hosting their banquet, giving out their awards, and recognizing some of the students who put in a lot of time and effort into making and creating some of the events that we had at the school. Friday, June 9th will be the last day for seniors, and we will top off our year by enjoying each other's presence during senior sunset on the softball field while the stadium gets remodeled. Yeah, my bad. June 10th there'll be an Eagle Band reunion in the Grand Floral Parade. You guys probably know more about that than I do, but I think it's kind of a big deal. And we'll also be having our senior all-night party, which will really be the last time we get to have fun as a class. And then, of course, June 14th will be graduation rehearsal and the class photo at 9 a.m. And then later that evening at 7 p.m. we'll be having the graduation. And then June 15th will be the last day for school for 9th grade through 11th grade. And I believe, I forgot to add this in, but June 13th there will be a BSU mural unveiling at the school. They've been working on that, and I think it's going to be pretty cool when it's completed. But yeah, that's it for me this week. Any questions?
Thank you so much. Questions?
All right. Thank you, everyone. It's been
Awesome.
it's been an amazing year being with you guys. And I think I will cherish this experience, and I think Lashmi and Marisol will also be enjoying this experience next year.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up, I'll hand it over to Superintendent Owens to introduce.
All right, 'tis the season for our budget adoption. We have some ever-going developments with the state legislature. It's been an interesting legislative session, as many are. And so in terms of our budget this evening, instead of just doing the public forum and the budget adoption, we also wanted to provide a presentation just so that you could have some additional information as far as how things are currently shaping up and how that is informing our budgeting as we are considering it for this evening. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Director of Business and Operations, Paul Southerton, who will walk us through.
Excellent. And if Director Andrews were here this evening, she'd be asking me if I'm sharing screen, because you may recall last year we started the presentation at this point in time, and it was supposed to be displaying, and it's not. So, but I could see that it is, so that's fantastic. It's good to be here tonight with everybody to discuss the 22-23 or 23-24 budget for Centennial School District. Tonight I will be reviewing the budget process for those attending who may not have participated in the budget meetings or are new to Centennial budgeting. I also will provide an update on funding, review adjustments between the approved and the adopted budget for your consideration later this evening. I'll provide a summary of the budget, and then I'll provide an opportunity for the board to ask questions. After that time, we'll have an opportunity for public hearing for non-board members to make comments and make statements. And then later in new business is when it would be up for your consideration to adopt the budget. It's important to note that Centennial budgeting is a community-based process with an equal number of board members and non-board members participating in the process. Presentation and feedback in approving the budget is done in an open forum with 2 meetings, and feedback is welcome and received at these meetings via email, in person, or in a public hearing that we'll have shortly. To date, we've received more than 100 questions and feedback comments on our budget, which is fantastic to have that much robust involvement and thoughtful consideration of our budget. Obviously, this greatly impacts the work that will be done in the next school year. So it's wonderful to have a highly engaged budget committee and community and staff and others that take the time to go through the document and ask those questions. So just a lot of gratitude for those folks for thoughtful review and feedback of the budget. The budget was approved at the budget meeting number 2, which was held last month. And then tonight, it's up for your all consideration and adoption. So many steps along the way to get to where we are, and one more until we'll have an adopted budget. The funding outlook is, as Superintendent Owen shared, still uncertain. And so we do have a bit of an update on that. So funding, there remains universal support for a 2-year biennium state school fund of $9.9 billion. But recently, with increased in revenue projections and received revenue in the state legislature reports, it's now been considered to be moved up to 10.2 or perhaps even 10.3 billion, which is much closer to what districts need for actual roll-up costs from year to year. So, and even this week, I believe it was approved out of the Ways and Means Committee and will eventually hopefully go to the floor for a full vote when there's a quorum with the legislature. So with this increase, it means the projected deficit spending from our savings account for next year would drop from that $3.5 million that was approved by the budget committee and has been shared before, down to the more manageable level and intended level of 1.5 to 1.8 million if that funding is realized. And that's an if, because things are still uncertain. But good to know that that would be similar to our projected spend down in the ending fund balance. And as you'll recall, we went forward with the intention of continuing all current service levels, regardless whether the legislature would approve a level of funding that would support continuation of services or not, because that's what Centennial students need next year. So this would save us from having to spend more money out of our savings. We would still be running a deficit, though, for next year. So again, we're pleased at this potential increase, and we did continue all our funding, so it does result in a projected low deficit spending for next year. Because it's uncertain, and because we already fully funded our programs based on the current service level, what you won't see tonight is an increase of expenses in the general fund. And we won't recognize that increase of revenue yet because, again, it's uncertain. So the expenses that we proposed so doing so based on what students needed and continuing to service, whether or not the legislature was going to come with the appropriate funding. So that's why you won't see an increase in new expenses in the general fund with the adopted budget. There are, however, 3 adjustments that are in the adopted budget for your consideration later this evening. And it's important to call those out so that you know the impacts and the changes between the approved budget that was approved by the budget committee and then what's in the adopted budget for your consideration of approval later this evening. 2 of the changes are in the grants fund. There's activity in the legislature for what's called an early literacy grant to promote literacy in the early K through 2 grade levels of school districts. Centennial's apportionment of that would be approximately $700,000 of revenue coming in for those specific intended uses. So we're recognizing that. There's also an unforeseen delay in receiving school buses that this board has already approved, and they've already been ordered, and they were expected to be received by June 30th. But as we're all aware, with supply chain delays and impacts, we've only received 2 of those buses to date. So we did make an adjustment in timing only of those expenses incurring next year instead of incurring this year. So not new expenses, just a difference in timing. What this looks like in the grants fund is, you'll see, is the early literacy grant, and I think you can see my cursor maybe on the screen here. recognizes that the resources, or revenue, will increase by approximately $700,000 for Centennial's share of early literacy grant. You'll also see $1,030,000 of revenue that would increase from the reimbursement for the grants for the purchases of the school buses. And I apologize, that includes, I should have said network equipment as well, which is also delayed. So this change recognizes both and was on the previous slide. So in total, this increases our revenue, expected revenue or resources in the grants fund by $1.73 million for next year. And because in accounting, we like things to balance, that means we need to show the expenses that would happen with those things. So there's potential for 4 positions in early literacy under the license classification and 1 position for early literacy under the classified classification. There's also potential for program management of the early literacy program, and then you'll see the expenses for buses and IT network equipment in there. So we had 1.73 million additional coming in the resources and the revenue, and we have 1.73 million going out in the expenses because of those timing issues and then the new literacy grant. Our third adjustment and final adjustment in the entire budget, which is great. We don't like a lot of adjustments at this stage, so it's nice to not have many, is another timing issue in regards to the dining services fund. So again, both these funds are not the general fund, it's a grants fund, and then we have a separate fund for dining services, which, as you may recall, accounts for all the money that comes in for reimbursement for serving of meals to students. We are a CEP district, which means we don't collect revenue from families and from students. All our students eat for free, and we are reimbursed largely by federal programs and some state match as well. And that goes into the dining services fund because those funds can only be used for that program. They can't be used for any other purpose or program. They can only be used for dining services, for the food, for the labor, for the equipment, supplies, repairs and maintenance, other things related to that fund. And that's by statute. They are dedicated for those purposes. And so we do recognize that we had intended to buy some equipment and make some additional improvements in the adopted budget for the current year, 2022, 2023, and that turned into a larger project. And so, as you'll see later on in new business before you, is a possible an opportunity to approve that project, and one that took more time to plan, and really it needs to happen this summer instead of us piecemealing it during the school year. So, again, a timing issue. We will spend less this year. And so we will then have more money in that fund next year because it went unspent and it's dedicated to that purpose. And then we will spend those funds next year. So purely a timing issue between the two budgets. And that's for folks that don't know, when you adopt the budget this evening, that appropriation and that authorization for us to spend expires at June 30th at the end of the year. So, as the expression may go, it turns back into a pumpkin and we cannot spend money anymore. So we have no authorization to spend $1, even if it was previously approved by statute as of July 1, unless we have a new adopted budget. So that's why, even though these were incurred, even though we're under contract, even though they're expected, we do have to include them in the budget and then receive we need your adoption of the budget to make that appropriation and incur those planned expenses. So all the intricacy of budgeting, that goes involved in this. So, and financially, numbers-wise, again, we'll show the resources or revenue. In this case, it's the beginning fund balance. It's not a new fund source that's coming in. It's that we're going to have more money in that account at the beginning of the year than we expected to plan or expected to. Think about if you paid a bill on the 28th of the month or you paid a bill on the 2nd of the month. It's a different month. So this reflects that in the food service fund. And then likewise, again, because we like things to balance, it shows the $500,000 going out for the specific food preparation and dispensing program in dining services, which is the allowable use. And that concludes the changes or the adjustments between the approved and the adopted budget. I'll pause for a minute in case there's questions. Yes, please, Vice Chair Shields. I think it's a great summary. We approved the budget in May, or you all approved the budget, because I can't approve a budget. The budget committee, which consists of the board and the community, approved the budget in May, thinking that we may have a $3.5 million deficit that we're spending out of our savings account. At this point in time, it appears that will only decrease. It will only get better than what was already approved. Does that make sense? It is an uncomfortable position that school districts are put in, and other agencies, every 2 years, because this happened 2 years ago, and it happened 2 years before that, and it probably happened 2 years before that, but I wasn't here. And so, this is another reason, though, why we have an ending fund balance, and we have a savings part of our account, because, yeah, it's not approved, and they can't spend on any new number, even though there's universal support for at least 9.9. They won't give us payments in July for 9.9. They can only give us payments for the amount that was adopted this year, or this biennium, 9.3. So not 9.9, not 10.2 or 10.3, which would be needed. 9.9, yeah, which is considerable, right? I mean, that's over a 10% decrease in absolute terms. Of course, it crosses 2 bienniums, so it's 5%. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, there was an alert sent out about the, I always have to look up all the things that happen, what it was, I can't remember all of them. But, the student investment account, based on the Student Success Act, they're trying to move some of that money to different places. He didn't really use it, do things that, first of all, they tell us it's dedicated to us, and then we, affirmate our budgets to that, and then they take the dedicated funds and potentially move it into a different direction.
Yeah.
Again, that ties the district's hands. So if that comes to fruition, $1 million gets moved in that particular way, am I asking for something that cannot be explained? It's just something that we would adjust to it based on what occurs at Sarah.
In short, yes, agencies will adjust to what is ultimately approved. In the case of Centennial, if they do carve it out from the state school fund or from the student investment account, that means new strategies that we intended to do with that potential new grant will not be able to be done without curtailing existing strategies. We would have to move or adjust what we're doing with our existing. Now, it's way more complex than that, but that's the short answer that I hope meets your question. And I see Superintendent Owens.
At the risk of putting you on the spot for the benefit of the board and the audience,
Sure.
can you explain a little bit about what that proposal is for the Early Learning Fund and the movement into the student investment account rather than a standalone?
Yeah, so I think what you're asking is they're essentially would take schools' allocations and they would carve out what the early learning or early literacy grant is for. So our allocation next year is roughly a little over $5 million anticipated, because again, nothing is approved out of the student investment account. And this would carve out $700,000, which is our estimate. Out of that funding, we would get $700,000 less in that account, and then we would have to use those funds for the new grant purpose. And so, obviously, this is, currently we're in year 3. Next year would be year 4 of receiving any funding from the Student Success Act or the Student Investment Account. And so we have strategies in place and multi-year plans and things that are working in serving students in the way that the Student Investment Account is intended to be used. And those would have to be curtailed if funding was essentially cut by $700,000 out of $5 million. That's pretty substantial. That's a pretty substantial decrease in funding. It's over 10%, right? So 10% would be $500,000. So you're looking at roughly 12 to +% cut in our initiatives that we could potentially fund, which is not what we would like to do everything we're doing this year and just have our roll-up costs. It'd be great if we could employ, the quality education model in Oregon and be fully funded for that. But, it's, I'll just put that out there, But at a minimum, we would just like to do, what we're doing this year serving students. And so having a 12% cut of that very important program would be challenging.
I just asked Chair Slosky that we maybe, approving the budget tonight is imperative, yet in continuing to have updates as these things happen in Salem, and just letting us know where we might be having to have discussions
Yeah.
about those types of movement of monies, if some of these things come to fruition at the very end
Yep.
of this legislative period, just so we
Yep.
understand what those things might be.
Yeah. I wish I could say I was less confused. Can we go back a couple of slides
Certainly.
to the three things that we're adopting? So right there with one more. With that 700,000 from the early literacy grant, is that what we're talking about? Like they're saying, we're gonna give you a grant for this money, but then they're gonna say, actually, the grant's coming out of money that we're already giving you?
So that's a new wrinkle in the early literacy program. It
Okay.
has been proposed as new funding, and that's how it's being proposed in our adopted budget. Because there is a lot of support, you know, politics, legislature has multiple sides, at least two, right, and often more. And so it's largely been proposed to this point and supported as a separate new program, and therefore new funding that would result in new initiatives to support literacy. And so that's how we proposed it in the adopted budget. Recently this week, as in Monday or Tuesday, that's a different proposal has come up, and that's the one that Vice Chair Shields was asking about, and then we were just talking about. So at this point in time, it could go either way. It could be new
Okay.
money, which we're hopeful it is, and it could be a carve-out. So that we don't have to come back and approve what's called a budget supplemental. We're putting it in as if it's new money. We will
Great.
not spend against it until we know what the program is.
Great. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that, and I encourage everyone out there to call your legislator and make sure that we're getting some new funding for this, because it would suck to have to carve it out of somewhere that we're already spending. Thank you.
Excellent question. Thank you so much. All right, I will jump into the summary. So overall, I'm really pleased to report that Centennial has approved through the Budget Committee and is before you this evening for approval of adoption, a very student-focused budget that supports the district strategic plan, currently Destination 2023, and our successor plan for 2027. It also supports the priority of the community and the Budget Committee, who showed up in, as I said, many questions and participation throughout the process. It maintains our current service level for students. It makes investments in lower class sizes. It leverages funds to support all learners, including special education and those learners that prefer a non-traditional learning environment. And it continues our investments in co-curricular activities and student leadership opportunities. It also invests in improving school safety and the learning environments for students. This budget, as informed by the Centennial Budget Committee, including the school board and Centennial families, staff, and students, throughout the strategic planning sessions, work groups, and meetings, is respectfully submitted by the administration for your consideration of adoption under new business later. The 2023-24 Centennial School Budget as amended in the total amount of $164,646,303, including the general fund budget in the amount of $93,604,100, and all other fund budgets in the amount of $71,042,203. The proposed general fund permanent tax rate is set at $4.74.48 per thousand of assessed value, and the proposed tax levy is $3,813,893 for the 2023-2024 bonded general obligation debt payments. I welcome any questions you may have. Again, it is not before you currently for adoption. That would be later under new business. But that is the summary of the budget and the three changes that are in it from the approved.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Are there any questions at this time? We've all had multiple opportunities to ask questions. Just thank you so much for all your hard work and putting that together.
Thank you.
All right, moving along. As we know, the longitudinal performance growth targets are a component of the integrated guidance that was submitted in. You're fine. That's after reports. Thank you. So that longitudinal performance growth targets are a component of the integrated guidance, which was submitted in accompanying with our strategic planning process this year. That is a process that Director of Curriculum and Student Learning, Maureen Callahan, is working with the state of Oregon to help get us dialed in on. She is going to give us a report this evening as far as the status of that. They are not ready for board consideration for approval, but we would like to provide you an update as to where they stand and what our next moves will be with that. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Director Callahan.
There we go.
Good evening, Board of Directors. This is a report on the state-required longitudinal performance growth targets, also known as LPGT. The LPGT is a part of the board-approved integrated guidance plan, which each district was required to submit in March. The state extended the timeline beyond March for districts to complete these growth targets. The targets shared tonight are a draft and part of our co-development with ODE. After co-development, I will return here requesting the board's approval. Tonight's report includes clarity of longitudinal performance growth targets, an understanding of the expectations, process, and guidance from ODE, a glimpse into Centennial's process, and our next steps. This slide serves as a quick reminder of the integrated plan. This chevron shows the areas to be integrated, along with the common elements and goals. This is a summary of the performance measures the state is using for accountability with districts. You can see them listed on the top left-hand side. The longitudinal performance growth targets are one of the ways we'll measure our success. The other measures are already in place depending on the grant. And then to the right is a visual model of how they see these accountability measures coming together. I'll talk more in a little bit about stretch targets, baseline targets, and gap closing targets. What are longitudinal performance growth targets? These are targets districts are asked to set for the next 5 years. The targets center on two groups, student groups, within each of the 5 common metrics. All students, and then combined focal student groups. ODE defines focal student groups as students of color, students with disabilities, emerging bilingual students, and students navigating poverty, homelessness, foster care, as well as other students who have historically experienced disparities in school. All districts are required to co-develop these targets with ODE and will be based on the data made available to us by ODE, the guidance established by the department, and using these 5 metrics. There are also local metrics that we're in process of developing through the strategic plan that are optional to include. And at this point, because they're in process, we have not included those in our process for the state. As far as our process drafting these LPGT for our district, We participated in both state and county provided trainings for the development of the targets. In short, we created a protocol to gather input from our administrators regarding targets in each of the 5 areas. The first part of the protocol included about 20 minutes of building familiarity with the data, the process, and the intent. We went through each metric, exploring possible targets, and taking into consideration variables and the Centennial context. Each target has a rationale for why we determine this as a set target. This is, I will open this link and see what happens here. This is a short show and tell highlighting some of the big ideas as we looked at this process. Whoa, it's really hard to see here. Let's see. Okay. You can see, I'll just highlight some of the big ideas that impacted our conversation. It would take much longer to get into details of this. But you can see this was the spreadsheet provided to us by the state. There's an instructional tab and an ODE submission tab. I'll show that in a second. And then you can see the 5 metrics across the bottom. And so we were asked to consider growth targets in each of those areas. One of the first decision points looking at the data, and I might go back and forth here so you can see more of the spreadsheet, was to decide, do we want to use as a starting point a 5-year average, or do we want to use 21-22 as the starting point? And the rationale for that, really, when you think about the last 5 years, it did vary for us, the conversation, and it just depended what some of the strengths and challenges were. So looking at this, I'll hopefully you don't get whiplash here too much, but you can see the starting point here, both for all students and the combined focal groups. Right now, it is set at 21-22 starting point. So that is where we would start in terms of our incremental growth. If you continue to look at that, when I click the use the 5-year average, it changes the data for us. So now the starting point is the 5-year average, taking into consideration the previous 5 years. So again, that was a decision point for us as we explored the data. The next piece that I'd like to share is the baseline targets, gap closing targets, and then the stretch targets. The baseline targets was determined to be, these should be attainable. So looking at your data in your community, this should be a target that you feel confident that you can reach in 5 years. The gap closing target is intended to do just that, to close the gap between our all student group and the combined focal group. The stretch target is intended to be ambitious, and so to go beyond, to push ourselves, to challenge ourselves beyond that. Again, you can see the starting point here. So this was the 4-year graduation that I'm sharing as a snapshot. The baseline target, we started at 72.7. We decided on 80.6, and you can see what happens if we would have said 85. Then it shifts, everything is formulated to shift what the incremental target would be for each of the years. Let me put that back so I don't mess anything up. The other thing that we had to take into consideration is if you look at 50 and 51 here, the growth achieved by top 10% of districts. So basically, the state looked at, so for 4-year graduation, they looked at those districts with the top 10% increase. And they gave that to us as information, and I believe so that we can have some conversation on what's reasonable for us to attain over the 5 years. And so this is an average of 4.2, for example, increase each year. That's what the top districts were able to attain as it relates to four-year graduation. So it's context. So if that's happening there, then what can we reasonably do? So because it is important that there is no formulaic way of doing this, and they state that up front, that this really is about our context and what we believe that we can do depending on our investments and our outcomes. So I just wanted to give you a glimpse into that. This is why it takes about 20 minutes just to okay, we think we understand this, and then we dig into conversations. And the thing that we wanted to make sure that we did is we had rationale. So if we said 80.6 for this particular one, we said historic data showed a high of 80% in 1920. If increasing the rigor for grad requirements happens, then we believe we can hit 80.6. So that is what I'll go into these co-development meetings with, just a draft thinking in terms of where we're at. 10%, top 10%. Mm-hmm.
Top 10 that look like us, or top 10 in the state period?
In the state, period. Yeah. So, any
Can
other
I-
questions?
I have a
Yeah.
question about that too. If they give us that, the top 10%, that 4.2, do they also give us any guidance around what those districts are doing to reach that? Or are they just saying, here's a number?
Yes, they're just giving us the number. However, that's a question that I continue to raise, and I'm looking forward to that co-development meeting.
Fantastic, thank you.
Another point to that too is they're not telling you the starting point of the districts that are achieving that 4.2%. Are they starting at 30%? Are they starting at 80%? So that just gives you the percentage of the top 10% of districts that are making the most substantial gains. So
Yes, yes. Yeah. Okay, moving on, unless there are any other questions. No, that's fine. So these are the data that we've come up with to present to the state, not in a presentation, but in a co-development mindset. So this is our best thinking to date. These next 3 slides are the 5 common metrics: 4-year cohort graduation, 5-year cohort completion. And so we can go back to that slide, to the spreadsheet, and look at more of the rationale if interested, but I imagine when I come back, I'll have more accurate information from the state. The next slide is 9th grade on track, and then 3rd grade ELA proficiency. And you can see, so we've identified a baseline target, a stretch target, and a gap closing target for all our focal group students. If for each of our metrics, we made the decision that our gap closing target will be the same as our baseline target, which really pushes us to close the gap. And then the last one is regular tenders. What happens next? This is the state's timeline, and for the most part, we're on track. We'll move into more like July until we have final approval, and we're going as fast as the state will allow us to go. And when I say that, what will happen next is we did just recently receive feedback from the state regarding our integrated plan. There are 3 areas of content that they would need more information on. And then, quite frankly, the rest of the requests have to do with technical aspects of the budget spreadsheet. We didn't code something accurately, or we need to move something somewhere else. And so that is all being attended to right now. I'm meeting with a representative from the state early next week, just to make sure I have everything correct of what we need to correct. And then once we resubmit, they approve, they'll send an invitation for co-development to happen. I'll make an appointment, we'll do that work, and then I will return to the board for final approval later this summer. Questions?
Is that co-development phase, will that be you and a representative from ODE, or will it be multiple districts coming together?
I believe it's districts and ODE one-on-one.
One-on-one? Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Yep.
I'm sorry, but it just, when I see that kind of work done, it just makes me really wonder.
Hmm.
We've been tracking this data for years. So for them to just throw out numbers as they've done, or it feels as though they've done, without the background for that data, seems, those words go out. Reckless is best. I don't get it. And I'm sorry that you have to deal with something as opaque as this is. That just doesn't seem right. But it is a process. And I'm sure there are other people expressing their concerns and or issues with being able to supposedly keep statistical data on, based on what. So it's a frustration.
For sure, it took me a minute to figure out what they were asking because I kept looking for the formulaic piece. But I will say that this squarely, they are focusing and are asking us to focus on closing the gap. And to me, that's the most important thing. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how this ends up.
I don't have a question per se, but it strikes me as fascinating that our early literacy grant could come in particularly handy in that fifth metric or fourth metric there when it comes to the literacy piece with our third graders. So how tightly interwoven that is, and paying very close attention to that, I think will be hard.
Absolutely, yes.
Especially funding is
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great work. Next up, we have the superintendent's report. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Superintendent Owens.
All right, I was asked to come up with a slightly smaller report this time, so. It's my privilege, as usual, to share with the board an update about what's happening in the district. This month is Pride Month, which is an opportunity to celebrate the LGBTQ2 SIA plus community and their great achievements. This month is significant as it symbolizes a substantial change that has taken place over the last few decades. Although injustices and prejudices still exist within our society, there have been great strides made since the Stonewall riots in 1969, including attaining marriage equality. However, and as we know, there is still a long way to go in the struggle for equal rights, as many members of the LGBTQ2 SIA plus community still face discrimination. By learning about Pride Month, students are more likely to have an understanding and acceptance for all individuals regardless of their appearance, gender identity, and who they love. This month, Centennial schools will celebrate Pride Month in a variety of ways. A few of them include increasing visibility through informative and celebratory bulletin boards and signage, read alouds focusing on the LGBTQ2 SIA plus community, and then also I wanted to share with you just an example of what this looks like at one of our schools. Here's Oliver Middle School, for example, and they are having each day in this particular week a theme that they are educating around as it pertains to Pride Week as well. So it's showing up differently in different schools, but it is a point of emphasis. And to that end, as a reminder, the Centennial School District Monthly Celebrations and Heritage website contains a collection of resources for our educators to be able to access throughout the school year to help with teaching about Pride Month. Last night, I had the privilege of attending the Senior Awards program at Centennial High School to recognize seniors who are receiving honor cords, scholarships, and awards. Also got to see Director Stanley there as well. A highlight of the evening were the 10 valedictorians who each got to share about their honored educator, which is one teacher in their K-12 experience that made a particular impact. A few facts here, accumulated by our Chief Rosales Correa. 50 different scholarships were awarded to 186 students. The scholarships ranged from $250 one-time scholarships to an $80,000 full ride 4-year scholarship. There were roughly $620,000 in scholarships awarded to our class of 2023. The scholarships were granted from local and national organizations like our own OSEA, the Centennial Education Foundation, Questbridge, and Amazon. I was honored to award this year's Dale Kruger 2023 scholarship in the amount of $2,000 a year for 4 years to 18 students. As a brief reminder, the Centennial High School and Centennial Virtual Academy graduation is next Wednesday, June 14th at 7 p.m. If you're attending, please plan to arrive 1 hour early at 6 p.m. for the staging and the rehearsal. And you might also want to pad in a little bit of extra travel time, as traffic can be heavy and unpredictable in the Rose Quarter area, and you wouldn't want to get stuck in that. If you haven't already done so, please be sure to get your graduation and parking tickets from Missy before you leave this evening, and I know that she was actively looking for board members that have not gotten those yet. I want to offer my congratulations to our seniors who have navigated and persevered through a high school experience that none of us could have ever imagined for them. From having school shut down during the spring of their freshman year to various forms of distance learning and hybrid instruction to layered mitigation protocols last year and so on, our high school seniors have been through a lot. It's great that we're able to experience a relatively normal school year this year to finish out their high school experience. And for this and for the various other accomplishments, academic and otherwise, I want to offer my gratitude and admiration. Here's some pictures from last year's ceremony. While we are on the theme of graduations, the Centennial Transition Center, or CTC, graduation will be occurring this Friday, June 9th, from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. at Centennial Transition Center, which is located on 162nd, close to the intersection of 162nd and Division. As a brief reminder, the CTC serves students with individualized education plans, or IEPs, who've graduated with an alternative diploma. The purpose of the program is to support young adults in their transition to life after high school. The key focus of CTC is to help young adults build independence and quality of life, with an emphasis on preparing students for independent living, employment, and linking them to appropriate community and adult services. This year, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there are 6 graduates who will be recognized. Does that sound right? Remember, Denise Wright is our principal of CTC. Board members are invited to attend, and I look forward to seeing some of you there. Continuing along the theme of graduations and celebrations, last week the district hosted a retirement celebration at Persimmon Golf Country Club for staff that are retiring this year. I want to thank this year's retirees, who you see featured on the page, for their time and dedication to the success of students over the year, as well as Director Harden for attending, and we wish them all of the best in their retirement. Tomorrow evening, I will be speaking at the Centennial Place grand opening and ribbon cutting ceremony. Centennial Place Apartments on the corner of 164th and Powell is Cascadia Health's new housing site located in the Centennial neighborhood. Centennial Place will play an important role in supporting the community through affordable housing, integrated care, as well as environmentally sustainable features that benefit the health of everyone. Cascadia Health first broke ground on the Centennial Place Apartments in June of 2021 and began welcoming residents in October of 2022. Modeled on the belief that a stable housing is a crucial component of whole health, Centennial Place provides critical affordable housing to East Portland residents. All residents have access to Cascadia resources and are served by a full-time community manager who lives on site and a part-time resident services coordinator and 1 part-time peer wellness specialist, each of whom engage residents and connect them to other community resources and promotes a positive and welcoming culture within the building. And I know that our very own Lori Paulmiter has done a lot of work in terms of helping to coordinate and facilitate the connection to help see this through. So kudos to her and Denise's department with student services. Also tomorrow evening, the Bond Oversight Committee will convene for its quarterly meeting from 5 to 8 p.m. The committee will have the opportunity to tour Centennial High School, Centennial Middle School, and Meadows Elementary. Among the projects that BOC members will get to see are security cameras and vestibules, the progress of the track resurfacing at CHS, mechanical air conditioning at CMS, which is timely, and the gym and play structure at Meadows. BOC members will also receive updates on other projects in progress, a report on the budget, the usage of local contractors, and also an update on our community engagement efforts. Speaking of community engagement, the spring 2023 report to the community will be sent by mail to all community members living within district boundaries sometime here shortly. The report to the community provides highlights on student learning as well as current and future bond projects, and kudos to Chief Rosales Correa for all of his hard work in getting this prepared for us. As a reminder, and as was referenced in Edwin's report, the Awesome Eagle Show Band reunion is coming up this weekend. Up to 200 former show band members plan to participate, which includes the show band marching in the Rose Festival Parade, including both former and current band members. As I mentioned in my weekly update to the board, there was a feature in the Gresham Outlook you might have seen speaking to the upcoming reunion, and hopefully you had a chance to take a look at that. And as a final note, as we enter the final week of the school year, I wanted to express appreciation for the work of our students, our staff, and families, and our community as we've navigated through such a unique year. As we know, there's a lot that's been happening, and I want to thank the board for your steady hand and thoughtful consideration as we work together to lead our school district this year. And that concludes my superintendent's report.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Owens. I want to say too that Eagle Marching Band tomorrow night they will actually be marching through the neighborhood here, and so for those of you that are in the neighborhood on the parade route, I guess it's what they used to do was practice is go through the neighborhoods, and so they'll be going through the neighborhood again tomorrow practicing. And the last thing I wanted to say on that is I love the theme days at Oliver for Pride Month. That is absolutely beautiful. And thank you to, is that Chief
Rosales Correa.
Rosales Correa? Was that you kind of putting that all together? Or?
That was, Denise, can you speak to maybe some of the development of the Pride Week feature at Oliver?
Yeah, so each of our buildings, all 6 of our elementaries, both middle schools or high school, all have either rainbow clubs or GSAs. And so the facilitators of those clubs have worked with students to put those together. So at OMS, there's two school counselors. So
Super.
Triplet and Tiffany Schaefer were a part of that.
Super beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving right along, we come to the OSEA report with the lovely Christelle. If we could welcome her into the room. Okay, thank you. Go right ahead, my dear.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sweet. All right, thank you. I want to take a moment to recognize OSEA has a $500 scholarship that we award to family members of OSEA members. And last night we awarded it to Aaron Martinez. His mom is Maria Martinez and one of our secretaries at the high school. So it's also been sweet to watch this senior year. He has TA'd for her for at least part of the year. So we've kind of seen the behind the scenes of his senior year. So it was fun, and I congratulate him on his next step. Tonight, I would like to address 2 issues that have been ongoing, and I'm a little brain dead, so I'm going to read for part of it. So staff shortages, particularly among our bus drivers, our educational assistants, and secretaries, remain a significant challenge. We continue to rely on costly staffing agencies to ensure student services. We have to prioritize competitive wages for our staff and eliminate the need for external agency workers in the future. Additionally, despite several discussion starters, the classified staff members this year are still required to work on Juneteenth. Our administrators have it off, and it's been worked out so that our teachers have it off next year. But as of currently, we as classified staff are still required to work this year for Juneteenth. We are urging you to give us the holiday as intended. And hope that we'll be able to make progress in the next week and a half to remedy this. Lastly, I want to extend our best wishes to OSEA members as they head off to summer break. For those of you that are still on the grind and summer is a time to get big projects done, know that we're here to support you, and we hope that that work is able to get done. This has been an interesting year. I'm looking forward to a lot of the changes that we have been working on and in the future. But I have to say, like, in order for us to walk our talk in Centennial, we have got to get our staffing, especially our classified staffing, considered under control. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up on the report we have, or on the list, is a CEA report from Amanda Kassab. She's actually unable to be here as we changed this meeting. It conflicted for her, so she gave us a letter to read. So I'm just going to go ahead and read her letter right now. Good evening, CSD directors and cabinet. Let me begin by apologizing for being unable to attend in person this evening. I have a CEA scheduling conflict that I was unable to rearrange in order to be present. Congratulations to Director Shields, Director Harden, Director Solowski, Director Stanley, and Director Curry on your re-election to the Centennial School Board. CEA appreciates your service and thanks you for taking on this heavy lift. My two main goals this year were to understand the role of CEA president and build relationships with CSD administration. I feel I have successfully achieved these goals. CSD and CEA have collaboratively discussed and problem-solved many issues that have come up over the course of the 2022-2023 school year. From challenges with this year's calendar to the temperature of classrooms, I've been able to share concerns and collectively find solutions that support those impacted. I also appreciate the two-way communication and trust that has been built through our collaboration. While we may have come a long way, we still have work to do. Next year, I look forward to continuing in my role as CEA president, carrying with the relationship building that has begun and finding various ways for OSEA, CEA, and administration to partner together to build a district our students deserve. Within CEA, I am planning to find ways to engage membership in committees, so we're continuing to build leadership within our district. I know we are excited about the direction we are all working towards. I hope you all have a wonderful summer. I look forward to the 2023-2024 school year. Again, thank you for your collaboration and service. Sincerely, Amanda Kassab Johnson, CEA President. And thank you for your attention as we read that. At this point, we will move into a budget hearing before we take a brief break. So I will, at this point, open the budget hearing. Is there anything specific? I guess I forgot to ask that I need to say, Missy? Or just say, oh, perfect, here we go. Lovely. So this will be the opportunity for public comment. And I believe, is there anyone online who has raised a hand and is interested in speaking? Okay, let's give a minute for those two folks that are watching along. If you are here to give us some public comment, we'd love to hear it. We'll take a minute and just wait to see if any hands pop up. at this point, I'm going to go ahead and close the budget hearing. That, you know what that means? That just means you did such a fantastic job that nobody has anything left to say. And that's what I'm sticking to. Let's see, 7:47. Let's take a brief, shall we? Yeah, let's go ahead and do confirmation items. That makes sense.
The confirmation items as listed be approved.
Second.
All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Excellent. Confirmation items have passed. At this point, let's go ahead and take a break. Let's go 10 minutes. That gives everybody a chance. Bathroom break, stretch. We'll come back at 7:57 for the last portion of our meeting. Thank you.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Welcome back, everyone. We are ready to address board action items. First up for old business, we've got approval of GMP for ESSER project window and door partial replacement with Director Southerton.
Fantastic. Thank you, Chair Slawski. So the administration and RNC management group is recommending approval of the Guaranteed Maximum Price Agreement, or GMP, in the amount of $1,157,961 under the existing CMGC Emmerich Construction Company Small Works Agreement for partial window and door replacement projects at Centennial High School, Centennial Middle School, Powell Butte Elementary, Park Lane Elementary, and Patrick Lynch Elementary. As you may recall or may already know, many windows and doors in the district are in poor repair and need of replacement. This project utilizes approved ESSER funds, which are the emergency secondary funds supporting pandemic relief and also preparing for the next pandemic, hopefully never to come, but being prepared, and ventilation is a critical part of being prepared for that. And so that's why this is an allowable use, and that's why these funds are being proposed for this use. So we prioritized windows based on the ones that were in worst condition or had the smallest openings. We want to go ahead and target those first because it is a partial window replacement. We're not able to replace all the windows and the doors across the district. And the ones that have the greatest impact on students. New windows will have larger openings and allow for more ventilation. They'll also allow for egress if that becomes needed. The board approved the award of the CMGC Small Works Emmerich construction contract back in March of 2023. Under that process, this project was competitively bid out. All the work related to the process, and this is the amount that came in with the lowest bid for the quality and specifications that we need. This work will be funded with the ESSER grant funds as previously discussed and has been approved by the Oregon Department of Education, which is required for all capital projects using ESSER funds. It is recommended that the Board of Directors approves the award of the GMP in the amount of $1,157,961 under the CMGC Emmerich Construction Company Small Works Agreement for the partial window and door replacement project at Centennial High School, Centennial Middle School, Powell Butte Elementary, Park Lane Elementary, and Patrick Lynch Elementary, and grant the Superintendent, Director of Business and Operations, and their designees the authority necessary to sign contracts and agreements to complete the project. I welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions at this time? Hearing none, ask for a motion.
Move to approve as presented the recommendation in our board book. Started reading it all again.
Second.
All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approved. Let's keep going, Director Southerton. We've got approval of GMP bathrooms project at CHS.
Fantastic. So happy to report that as the board approved and the bond oversight committee approved, we had some remaining funds despite a challenging environment with the bond. So despite record inflation, supply chain shortages, labor shortages, and others, we were able to complete all bond promises and complete all projects and have some remaining funds. So identified projects consistent with bond language were approved by the board the bond oversight committee and the board. And so I'm back with you this evening to ask for approval of funding for one of the projects, which are the individual user bathrooms at Centennial High School. So similar to the previous board note or the previous project with doors and windows, different funding, but similar process. This is under the Emmerich Construction CMGC process, and it was out for competitive bid. The cost is $276,409. And it is recommended that the Board of Directors of the Centennial School District approves the guaranteed maximum price contract or agreement in the amount of $276,409 under the CMGC Emmerich Construction Company Small Works Agreement for the addition of 2 individual user bathrooms at Centennial High School, and grant the Superintendent, Director of Business and Operations, and their designees the authority necessary to sign contracts and agreements to complete the project. I welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions at this time? Hearing none.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Excellent, unanimous. Let's move on to exterior lighting.
Fantastic. So before you for your consideration is another below-the-line project that we're able to complete with bond funding because all the promises were kept and all the promises were funded and some remaining funds remained, or some funds remained that we are able to use for those allowable uses as approved by voters. One of those is exterior lighting improvements at Centennial High School, Centennial Middle School, Meadows Elementary, Powell Butte Elementary, Park Lane Elementary, Patrick Lynch Elementary, Oliver Middle School, and Pleasant Valley. We are recommending approval of a guaranteed price contract or agreement in the amount of up to $800,000 under the previously stated CMGC Emmerich Construction Small Works Agreement. For clarity and transparency, the district is seeking pre-authorization for this project by the board because we are in the process of bidding it out right now, and we know that it needs to be within this amount, which is established by the bond project for this dollar amount. So your authorization only provides us authorization to engage in contracts and move this work forward for the amount established in the budget. But we are still in the process of bidding, so I don't have the exact number for you right now. That's why it's an up to $800,000. So I just want to be transparent and be clear. We received 6 of the schools back today, and they are on budget. We are still awaiting Centennial High School, Park Lane, and Pleasant Valley. So I don't have a final number. With that, it is recommended that the Board of Directors of the Centennial School District approves the guaranteed maximum price agreement in an amount up to $800,000 under the CMGC Emmerich Construction Company Small Works Agreement for exterior lighting improvements at CHS, CMS, Meadows, Powell Butte, Park Lane, Patrick Lynch, Oliver, and Pleasant Valley, and grant the superintendent, director of business and operation, and their designees the authority necessary to sign agreements and to complete the project. I welcome any questions you have.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
I do have a question. When you guys were going out, because remember we had the conversation about just what the needs were amongst the district are.
Mhm.
What would you say this is covering in terms of the needs? Does lighting's going to be a challenge at most every school, yes? And this is an extensive list.
Yeah, fantastic question. What we found is there was a mix of maintenance items and new items that need to happen. There was a mix of replacement for outdated lighting that was ineffective with new lighting as well. And so we worked with R&W Engineering that did the same lighting assessment for our 5 schools that we did complete interior lighting replacements, energy efficient upgrades as part of the bond work. And we worked with our safety and security liaison, Pete Jetter, to do an assessment of the campuses and the vulnerable areas and the unlit areas coming in very early in the morning, very late at night, and then identifying those areas that were in need of improvement. Now, to be clear, we do have a limited budget, and I say $800,000 is a lot of money, but it is limited in the sense that we have nearly 1 million square feet of buildings, and more than that of fields and land, right, and properties. And so that's an awful lot of area, 1 million plus square feet. What we're focusing are the ingress and egress of our students and our families and our visitors coming for programming, after school programming or evening programming, co-curricular activities, clubs and sports and whatnot. That's our primary focus. So it is close proximity to parking, to the building, to entrances and to exits, so folks can clearly have safe routes, to and from their cars. You'll notice as part of the gym products, we have lighting going down all the sidewalk towards 182. That was consistent and thought of as well of people coming into our schools and our school properties. It does not, unfortunately, provide for funding of lighting in our play fields or in some of our sport athletic fields, apart from what we already have. There's an opportunity to visit that later should more money remain or should other monies be identified, but currently it does not provide for that.
Phase 2, right?
Phase 2. It's one step at a time. We're gonna climb the mountain and have everything taken care of in the end. So it's a journey.
Motion to approve the request?
Second.
All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Excellent. All right, moving on to nutrition services improvement projects at CHS. I have to say that rendering of what the proposal is looks fantastic.
Thank you so much. We engaged a student focus group with that. We engaged our designers and architects on options. We looked at new facilities that have been done in the area and other inspiration. I think it's going to be a fantastic project for our students, and hopefully just one of others that were able to be done over the years in our school nutrition services. So thank you so much. Before you this evening is another request for approval. The administration and RNC management group is recommending approval of the guaranteed maximum agreement in the amount of $997,963 under the CMGC Emmerich Construction Small Works Agreement for nutrition services improvement projects at Centennial High School. As identified, there's a need for improvement. So we had our student report, we had our REAP group at the previous meeting talk about, we'd like to see more options. We'd like to see more scratch cooking. We'd like to see other things available. We would like to as well. And part of that is making sure that our staff has the training, has the facilities, and to support those things. Food service has changed in decades, but our kitchens have not. And so this is the first step in improving our food service facilities at our most populous school, the high school, where we serve the most students and have the most activity. So, as described, we engaged with food service consultants and students and staff and architects to design this program. So the administration is recommending that the Board of Directors of Centennial School District approves the guaranteed maximum price agreement in the amount of $997,863 under the CMGC Emmerich Construction Company Small Works Agreement for nutrition services improvements project at Centennial High School, and grant the superintendent, director of business, and their designees the authority necessary to sign contracts and agreements to complete this wonderful project.
Thank you very much. Questions? Refresh my memory, is it not just the service area, but the kitchen itself?
That's a fantastic question. We are doing some improvements in the kitchen in regards to lighting and in regards to the ceiling. We are not doing other improvements in the kitchen at this time. You may or may not know that we use a culinary arts classroom for food service production and prep work at the high school because we have a lack of total facilities. The kitchen is so small, serving the population of the students at the high school. And then you may or may not be aware that we also do what's called satelliting, which is meals for other programs. They pay us because they don't have facilities to prepare meals themselves. And so this is many Head Start programs and others in our community serving our community members, but they don't have the ability to do that. Portland Parks and Rec this summer is another partner, so they do outreach in parks and neighborhoods and apartment complexes and things like that, which is vitally important to supporting and eliminating food insecurity during the summer. And they don't have the facilities to prepare the meal. So this is kind of two operations, two facilities serving our community members, serving our current and future students under one very small roof. And so part of this project is moving into the cafeteria space, creating a much larger servery, which will also help with the production needs. So it's essentially doubling the size of our food kind of servery and prep area, so that we can turn over that culinary room to the culinary program and still meet these needs. Unfortunately, there's not enough funding at this point because you'll recall this funding is contained within the food service fund that we spoke about earlier when we were talking about budget changes. It's not coming out of the general fund, it's not coming out of the bond fund or the capital excise fund or any other fund. It's coming out of the food service fund. So there's only dollars in that fund to support this phase. So similar to the lighting, phase 1, and phase 2 would be kitchen improvement. So I apologize for a very long answer to a very short question, but just wanted to make sure you had all the information.
So with these improvements, we will be able to create meals that are not heat and serve meals for our students.
This will support, yes, more scratch cooking.
Okay.
I would say we'll need to do the kitchen remodel, to support a complete scratch kitchen. We're
Okay.
not set up for that with
Yeah.
this phase, but we will be set up to do more scratch
Okay.
cooking, a lot more than we're doing right now. And part of it is also training.
Yeah.
There's not been a lot of investment in dining services. And, you know, I went to a lunch spot today. I don't think it was very excessive. I think they charged me a fair price for a fair meal, and it was $12, right?
Yeah.
We're reimbursed at about $4 for our meals.
Yeah.
And that includes labor and food and equipment repairs and other things. So it's a challenging environment. And still, we know our charge is to make delicious foods that kids want to eat, nutritious food that is great for our kids, and minimally processed as much whole food as we possibly can in scratch cooking. So that's our charge, and that's what we're focused on. And our new dining service director, Kim, who you met at the previous meeting, is intently focused on, and so we're partnering with that. So it's a big change that we're working to, but there's complete alignment with our wellness committees, with our dining services, and I believe with the board and administration to get it there.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Any other questions at this point in time?
Motion to approve the request.
Second?
All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
My son will thank you.
I would be willing to, I think, open a conversation as to trying to figure out what some of those kitchen needs would be, and looking at where we could potentially draw more funds from to support support our goals. So we can talk.
Fantastic. I would be happy to engage in a process that we did similar to the athletic complex, where the first thing is let's start with a strategic plan. Let's look at what would be possible and support that, and then we can discuss, or you all can determine, what parts do we, not to be punny, but bite off at a time. And
Yep. When you think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I think of all of our students coming in to learn, that nutrition is a really foundational building block for them to be able to learn. So I think it's very important, and I appreciate your attention to it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Moving on to new business. Ooh, this is exciting. We get to potentially adopt a budget.
All right, still with you for one more. So hopefully you're not tired
Lead
of
us,
me.
continue to lead us.
Tired of me yet. So before you tonight for your consideration is adoption of the budget for the 2023-2024 school year. You'll recall that the Budget Committee approved the 2023-2024 budget in March of last month. The public hearing on the budget was held earlier this evening. The budget should be adopted according to attached resolution. Along with adopting the budget, the board needs to appropriate the dollar expenditure limits for each fund by major function. Major functions are those such as instruction, support services, community, and others. Appropriations are authorized. The appropriations are the authorization granted by the board for the administration to make expenditures and to incur obligations for specific purposes for a single year. The district cannot exceed the appropriation levels approved by the board. The appropriation level is the board's legal level of control, and the board action is required to amend the appropriation. Appropriations are made for 1 year and will expire June 30th, 2024. The board must further declare the ad valorem property tax levy amount by resolution. That is included in the resolution before you. There's actually multiple resolutions in there. You'll see one is the appropriation level, then there's the ad valorem taxes, and the tax levy for the bond. The tax levy is categorized as either being under the educational limit or excluded from the limitation, such as a voter-approved local bond levy. Taxes excluded from the limitation are deposited into the debt service fund for the repayment of the district's general obligation bonded debt. Taxes collected under the educational limit are deposited in the general fund. We are requesting an ad valorem property tax levy under the educational limit to be deposited in the general fund. It is recommended that the board adopts the 2023-2024 budget, appropriate funds for the 2023-2024 school year, and categorize and levy the ad valorem taxes. I welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions at this time?
A little comment.
Please.
Just say thank you. You guys did a great job. Wonderful product. I've already been putting the idea in people's heads of, for the long term, maybe a bigger board, student union, community building. But I hope in the short term, we could talk about just getting the cabinet members' desks, because it's painful to watch them have to do their laptops on their laps for every board meeting. I would love to see the cabinet members getting a more comfortable setup for the board in the short term.
You know, Director Lynn's a fantastic idea, and I may have in storage some of those flipped up student desks. Let me look into that.
Whatever works for you guys. Thank you.
Director Lynn, they have been invited to sit at the table. Just kidding.
In all seriousness, I do appreciate your appreciation of the business office team and others that created the budget. There's, I'm up here, but there's a lot of folks that put a lot of effort into that. So thank you for that recognition to the team. Appreciate that.
Excellent.
Any questions?
Please.
If we move it as it's presented, does that include the resolution sheet that goes along with it?
Correct. That is what you are actually approving. You're approving the resolution adopting the budget, the resolution making the appropriations, resolution imposing the tax, and resolution categorizing the tax as listed. Yes. Oregon budget law, sorry, it is quite a few steps there. And I welcome questions you have on any of them, because I want to make sure that you feel informed and comfortable with your vote.
Thank you.
Just in the spirit that Director Lynn also mentioned, the way the budget committee and Director Harden are chairing the committee this year, I thought that your consistent prodding us along was really helpful and keeping us going and moving in the right direction, and I think that really helps in terms of getting people to sit and communicate what their concerns are or their questions. It made for an environment where people felt, I think, safe to ask those kind of questions, and nobody felt as though there were no dumb questions. And I think that's one of the things that we've strived for, is that you set the environment up for that, and of course, Director Sargentine followed through with that feeling that this is a safe place to ask hard questions. And certainly demonstrated by the numbers that you mentioned earlier in your report. So I just, that both of you to know exactly how to work to create that kind of environment. Very important for us.
Thank you very much. At this point, I'd love to hear a motion.
Want the last one, Roger? All right. Motion to adopt the budget for 2023-24.
I'll second it.
All those in favor of adopting the budget, making appropriations, imposing the tax, and categorizing the tax, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Thank you so much.
Woo. Now we just need the state to step up to the plate. Yeah. Instead of going directly into the executive session, I think we'll do future agenda items and adjourn so that folks that don't have to be here for the executive session don't have to come back. So at this point, I'll open the floor for future agenda items, and I'll turn it over to Superintendent Owens to take that first crack at that.
I have a small list. We have our swearing in of newly elected and returning board members. We have approval of a new dedicated Director of Human Resources. More information to come on that here shortly. You'll have the approval of the superintendent's evaluation that you consider this evening, and then you'll have the final product to bring forward to the July meeting. There's a couple of MOUs that Dr. Katsuda, who wasn't able to be here tonight, is working on, so she'll have that available for you, hopefully. And then a word that you haven't heard in a while, but you should be, is policies. So you'll have some policies, hopefully, to take a look at. It's time to get back on the horse there.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything, future agenda items that they'd like to raise? Please.
Outgoing the last meeting it's more of a suggestion than a formal agenda item. I understand the rationale, the outplacements, the need to contract with special services. I would love to see at some point when it's feasible to come back onto the table, the possibility of Centennial opening its own alternative high school and bringing a lot of that back under the district purview. I think it's in line with the goals to promote in-district competency, professional development, to be able to staff it in the manner that it's needed for something like that. It was a bit disappointing to me that it's not on the table right now, but I recognize the realities of the budget, the situation that we're in. But that is something I think that as much as our faculty, staff, and admins incorporate into the mainstream high school and try to service those students to the best of their abilities, I think there is something to be said for a separate campus, dedication of some of those people that staff the former Centennial Park facility. I don't know of anything that I've seen that really equals that. And I'm willing to be proven wrong, but that would be at least my outgoing suggestion, is that sometime it would be under consideration again. I think there's a real benefit to having that in district.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. Anything else for the good of the order? Excellent. We're going to go ahead and adjourn the regular meeting at 8:24 p.m. Thank you.